Hello, this is Andrine, a Jewish American priestess, and today I'm bringing you a Hebrunes reading in the month of Adar 1, which is the current month in the Hebrew calendar. And it's this extra month, this leap month that we have in our calendar that happens 7 times within a 19-year cycle. This month is sometimes known as the moon of reweaving from Kohenet Ketzira. And also there's this idea of the weaver, the oregit, the priestess pathway within Kohenet Hebrew priestess work that is the one who weaves together many things. Because this month of Adar 1, is the month that makes the lunar and solar cycles come back into sync with each other. So we add this extra month, and it's all about weaving things together. And I have been thinking a lot and coming up with a lot of different reweaving imagery. And within this altar here right now, we have several different elements that are woven together. The Jewish element, of course, with the Hebrew letters, the Hebrunes themselves. I have this pelt of reindeer that my eldest just brought back from Norway, which is part of my heritage, and I'm loving having it on my altar here. It really brings in that element for me. And then this braided sweetgrass that was given to me by my youngest was given to her as a gift on some of her travels, and I love that it's braided together in this woven fashion. So today our reading is going to be about what is it we are reweaving, what is it we're weaving together to bring things back into sync, bring things back into a whole. And to that end, we're going to do readings we're going to pull out tarot deck from our bowl here, and we're going to pull out 3 cards within that tarot deck and then do 3 readings based on what it is that you're reweaving right now in your life, or what is it that needs to be put back into sync for you. So let's start by mixing up our cards. We have a variety of different kinds of decks within this bowl. And we'll pull out one of the decks and see which one wants to speak to us today. We have the Wildwood Tarot. That seems very appropriate for some reason. So let's pull the Wildwood Tarot and get started. All right, I have the Wildwood Tarot here. I'm going to set these off to the side, as well as our Hebrunes. I'm going to leave the sweetgrass here to the side as one of our elements today. And let's shuffle the cards and see which cards want to come out for you today. I have too many here, so we're going to start again. Shuffle 1, 2. One more card, please. There it is. Okay, 3 cards. All right, let's take a look at our cards and see what's up today. So for pile number 1, we have the 10 of Bows, responsibility. For card number 2, we have the Knight of Stones, horse. And for card number 3, we have the 6 of Arrows, transition. Right, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Take a moment to discern which of these cards is speaking to you today in terms of what it is that you're reweaving right now. What is it you're bringing back into sync in your life? And I'll put the timestamps down below for number 1, 10 of Bows, number 2, Knight of Stones, number 3, 6 of Arrows, and I will see you in your reading. Hello, those of you who chose the 10 of Bows today. Let's take a look at your card a little more closely. So the 10 of Bows, it says responsibility. And you'll see here that this is a person who is climbing up a very steep path. And they have on their back the 10 bows that they are bringing up to what appears to be a village at the top. You can see there's a fire and some structures, tent structures. So they're schlepping this up the hillside with their responsibility. They have a great responsibility to bring these bows to their village. And it can seem like a lot, but they don't seem particularly angry about it. They seem like they're determined to do their work, judging from the look on their face. They've come a long way up from the bottom here. So there's a lot of responsibility for the people who have leaned into this card today. There's a certain amount of responsibility that is expected of you from your community, and there's a certain amount of responsibility that you are taking on your own, based on what you believe you are expected to do or need to do for the community. Those are all very valid things. And the way we're going to do this reading today is we're going to do some Hebrunes and some Nordic runes. And we're going to lay 3 on either side of the card, talking about what is it our responsibility is in this case, what is it we're reweaving to bring things back into balance. And we'll start with the Hebrews. At the top we have the letter Aleph. In the center we have the letter Mem. And at the bottom we have the letter Yud. Let's pull out our Nordic runes as well. And at the top we have the letter Ingwas. In the center we have the letter Raido. And at the bottom, Manas. Nice. All right, starting at the top we have the letter Aleph on the Hebrew side. And of course the letter Aleph is the first letter, the letter that means number 1 in the alphabet. It is the letter that corresponds to the mother letter of air. So breath and chest and heart even, the chest in the body, which includes the lungs and the heart, the beginning of a thing. This is what's coming down from the divine here. And Aleph also for me speaks to balance, right? So we're talking about balancing the lunar and solar calendar right now, but also maybe in this case, balancing your responsibilities with what you believe is expected of you. I see this person with the responsibility here taking this task upon themselves, which is quite noble of them. And ideally, the folks in their community will be grateful for their work if that is what the community needs. Sometimes folks take on more than they should. Sometimes it may be possible in your life that you've taken on more than is expected or required of you. And then it's easy to get disappointed when people are not as gracious or grateful as you wish they were. I speak from personal experience in this respect, having taken on a lot of responsibility that no one expected of me, and then been disappointed when I didn't get the respect or gratitude that I wished I had. And I think that Aleph speaks to that because it looks a little bit, you can see it looks like a little bit like a scales, where we have one element on one side and one on the other, and this balance being between. In fact, in the Sefer Yetzirah, it says that Aleph balances like a tongue between merit and guilt, which is an interesting phrase. We're not sure exactly what that means, but I think there is something about that, feeling guilty because one hasn't done a thing, or feeling like one deserves more merit than is warranted based on the needs of others. So I think there's a balance here. This is what's coming down from the divine, is this idea of balance. We have to balance giving what we can without overextending ourselves. It's important to give what we can, and it's also important to take care of ourselves. So I think there's a really strong message here coming down from the divine with regards to responsibility, how we're balancing things out with the lunar and solar, how we're balancing things out with giving and receiving. And that's the message I'm getting mainly from the top. I also correspond to the Aleph with the Temperance card in Tarot, which is all about balancing. So I think that's the main message here coming down from the divine, is find a way to balance giving and receiving. Find a way to balance merit and guilt. Find a way to balance what is expected, your responsibility versus what you are willing and able to give. On the Nordic runes side, we have the letter Ingwaz coming down from above. Ingwaz is the letter that corresponds to Ing, the god of fertility in the Nordic tradition. So Ing is all about gestation and internal growth and new life, about planting seeds and starting new things, but growing and having the ability to create how you would like to see things in the world, having that power of creation, having that power to fertilize and begin a new thing. It's a very, I want to say, masculine, young sort of energy with Ing. It's about planting seeds. It's about active creation, taking what you have available and creating what you can with that. And coming down from the top, I would say that this is saying, take initiative with what you have. This person is carrying a stack of bows, and they aren't just raw wood. You'll notice if you look closely that these are actually bows that can be strung and used to defend or to hunt. So there is this skill that's affiliated with this. This isn't just somebody carrying bows up a hill. This is somebody who has fashioned these, or is at least carrying them from an artisan to the village. So taking what raw materials one has available and weaving them or fashioning them into something useful and necessary. And that's what's coming down from the divine on the Nordic rune side. This idea of creation, active creation, using what one has to create what one can. In the center, this of each of the readings is this position of what is the challenge or the fear in our situation. And we have the letter Mem over on the Hebrew side. Mem is the mother letter of water. And it's a container that holds water within it. And since it is a mother and it is about water, it speaks to gestation in the body. So being a womb of some kind, having this pregnancy here, this waiting time. It's the number 40 in Gematria, and so it speaks to the 40 weeks of gestation in the human body. And there's a waiting period when one is gestating, and gestating is hard. It's hard to carry something to its completion. It is speaking to that fear or that challenge of how do we wait it out after this seed has been planted over here. How do we wait to see what's about to be born? Is there fear around the pregnancy? Is there fear around carrying this thing to term? Is there fear around the pain that might come from carrying something inside oneself? This creative act that we have begun here, is it going to come to a birth in the end? And how long will it take? I think there's a lot of fear around the length of time that it will take to get through. And this person, as I see in the card, has been climbing for some time. You can see all the way down the bottom of the mountain, and there's still a lot more to go. So I think it has to do with the fear or challenge in the amount of time it takes to gestate and bring something into manifestation, to create something that will become a reality in the world. That it's a period of time where we're doing the internal creation, that we're gestating an idea perhaps in our mind and trying to bring it into reality. The fear or challenge is, how long is this taking? The fear or challenge on the Nordic rune side is the letter Raido. Raido is the riding rune. It means going forward, progress, doing something the right way, proceeding, and growth. So similar, that it's taking a long time to get to where you're going. This path, this journey has been a very long path, and it's taking a long time, and it's very hard. It's a very, very steep journey that this person is on, this responsibility that they've taken on themselves to bring these bows to the village is taking an inordinate amount of time, and the path is very, very steep. So the fear or the challenge here is, how do we press forward? How do we keep moving forward to get this to where it needs to be? The responsibility is heavy. It's hard to carry these things up, and we're challenged with doing so, challenged with continuing to move forward, continuing to do things in the right order, in the right way, walking forward, getting all the way to the top of the mountain. And our outcome or our advice in this situation is the letter Yud on the left side. Here we have the letter Yud. It is the smallest of all the letters. It's like that seed letter. So back up to the ingwas here, a seed that is being planted. It is one point, the one point from which all things are manifest. So we plant a seed, eventually a plant grows, from that plant perhaps a tree, and from that tree fruit, and then within each fruit, again, dozens of seeds. So it's got the potential for so much within it. It's important to plant the seed, even if there's fear around it. Maybe it's again, this idea of creativity and artisanship, and it is the number 10, so it's the number 1 times 10, so it's this manifestation, this ultimate manifestation of oneness. And it is the first letter of the divine name, the Yud He Vav He, which means becoming, this contraction of was, is, and will be in Hebrew, the Yud He Vav He. So there's something here when I sit and look at this picture together with the responsibilities and what's expected of us, and balancing all those things along with the long-term gestation of this trip this person is taking, that the outcome here is that oneness. The outcome is finding a single point. The outcome is leaning into the idea of the becoming, the process of the journey. It's not about getting to the top. It's about who you become along the road. And I think that's really the big message here. We're weaving this path. We're weaving together our responsibilities with the expectations of others. But the big picture is, what are we becoming? What have we woven to create our own self in this journey? Yes, the bows are important, and yes, the relationships are important between us and other. But when it comes down to it, the final point here is to become that which the divine has appointed you to become. So as we walk along our path here, waiting to see how things are going to turn out, remember that it's not about the destination. It's about becoming who we are all along the way. And that's a really hard message to remember, but it's essential as we go along on this journey with responsibility toward ourselves, really a big picture, our responsibility toward others, and our responsibility toward taking the gifts that have been given to us by divinity and manifesting them, taking that seed that's been planted by the fertility god and turning it into what is expected of us from the divine, and not just from others. Really reaching inside of ourselves and discovering what we're meant to be, what is our soul's purpose here on the planet. And we may not know that from in a big picture way, but from moment to moment we can always turn and ask the divine, what should I be doing right now? On the Nordic rune side, we have the letter Manas, which is really interesting. You can see that okay. The Manas is the letter that means humanity and mankind and humankind. So it's about finding our place in the bigger picture of humanity. What is our note in the song? It's kind of hard to explain, but it is about our place in the bigger picture. And if you know anything about Nordic runes, this rune looks like a wunyo and another wunyo coming face to face. Wunyo, which means joy. So it's meeting others with joy. The outcome here is, how do we meet others with joy? How do we meet ourselves with joy, for that matter? But if we could find a way to meet each other with joy rather than just obligation, I think is the answer here, because of this card about responsibility. How can we meet each other with joy rather than obligation? How can we take responsibility for ourselves and meet another who is taking responsibility for themselves, not feeling obliged to do whatever it is we think others expect of us, but following our own hearts, and then meeting others who follow their own hearts as well. And that's the outcome here, is the manas. How do we find our note in humanity? By tapping into our own joy, by tapping into the joy that we get when we meet others in that same spot. So for those of you who chose the Ten of Bows, we have this concept of responsibility here, which in traditional tarot is a huge burden, right? You're taking on too much. What we're asked from the divine on the Hebrew side is to balance things out, balance what it is we are doing with what others expect of us, and making sure that we're not overburdening ourselves, to take a breath, to breathe into it, to listen to our heart. That we've got on the Nordic rune side this manifestation of active creation, which is showing up here to make something. What it is that we're making is this some seed that has been planted. That our fear in our situation is the gestation. How long is this going to take? Are we going to be in this forever? That maybe we're concerned about the discomfort of carrying this burden the whole way. That the journey is long with Rhino here, that we have a long, long trek to go. But it's not only about the destination, it's about the journey. The journey which is challenging. It's a challenging journey going all the way up to the top here. The outcome is to find that seed that we started with, to find the seed and to lean into the becomingness of it, to recognize that within that seed is all of potential. And that in the end, we'll find our place in humanity, be able to meet others with joy, with the manas here, that we can find our special note in the song. So for those of you who chose responsibility, that's your weaving today. This is what is coming up for you right now in this time of Adar 1, when we weave our way into the balancing of the lunar solar calendar. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this reading, please do like and subscribe, and I will look forward to seeing you here next time. Hello, card number 2. Those of you chose Knight of Stones, Horse. Let's take a look at this card. I seem to recall that we've had this one not terrifically long ago in a reading as well. The Knight of Stones is traditionally the Knight of Pentacles in tarot. And the Knight of Stones is known for being very slow and methodical in their movement, very earth-based. But this Knight of Stones is a horse. And this horse isn't just standing around, he's kicking up the dirt. So I think this is really interesting that with regards to reweaving, we have those two meanings kind of woven together here. That moving forward very methodically and steadily and slow growth, and kicking up the dirt and really making things move forward. This horse looks rather primitive in his depiction. So he's got that wildness, that untamed, unbridled, literally unbridled character to him. This Knight of Stones. And the stones, are ancient building blocks of the planet. And we have this knight who is a horse. And his job is to break up those clods of dirt and kick up his heels and run along the earth. He's very grounded, but he also moves at a relatively good speed. Horse is also known in the Nordic mythology as that which carries our spirit forward. So we have a spirit movement here along with horse. So our weaving here today for whoever chose horse is all about both that idea of stability with the earth element as well as the forward movement of spirit. We're going to pull out 3 Hebrunes today and 3 Nordic runes to see what other messages we have coming up for this reweaving. What are we putting together to balance things out right now in our life? Coming down from above, we have the shin. Our fear or challenge is the dalet. And our outcome or advice here is the hay. Let's see what Nordic runes come out to further clarify. And coming down from above, we have Iwas. Our fear or challenge is manas. And our outcome or advice is wunyo. Nice. Okay. So coming down from the top, we have the letter shin on the Hebrew side, and this is what is the divine gifting us with right here. And this is the mother letter of fire. Shin is the letter that shows up in the word aish, so it has that fiery sound to it, that hissing sound of a fire, shh. And it's the first letter of the word the Shekhinah, which is the indwelling presence of the divine spirit. And with the horse here being the spirit animal coming forward, I think that seems really appropriate. The shin talks about transformation through fire. So there's some kind of fiery passion that is here, and you can see that in the horse, that it's passionate, jumping around and kicking up the dirt. The shin is about fire, and that speaks to the sun and the moon and the stars in the sky. So there's a lot of fiery element here with the shin. And again, that transformation through fire. So something passionate, and it can be love, and it can be anger, and it can be just inspiration, the way that fire is an inspiration and lighting things up, a spark of an idea. So it's this creation element of fire here. It's also the letter that speaks to change, the first letter of the word shini. So something is changing here. What's coming down from heaven is some kind of change, something that will bring us into balance. Is the first letter of the word shalom as well, which means wholeness. So transformation occurring here. A transformation maybe in terms of the earth moving or shifting, like a volcano or an earthquake, maybe having to do with that fire. I think about volcanoes, of course, because they have fire and lava and so on, and they are the transformation of the earth through fire. But something is changing. Something is passionate. Something is full of spirit moving forward. And there's a transition that's happening here with regards to what is being woven for you right now during this time. So those of you who chose the horse here, the Knight of Stones, even though the stones seem stable and they seem solid, there's transformation happening to them. Even the stones are changing. The presence of the divine is here in you and is moving forward with this fiery sort of burning of the land as it clears things as you move forward, using all of those fire elements with the sun and the moon and the stars as it burns its way toward where it needs to go. And on the Nordic rune side, we have the letter Iwaz. Iwaz is the letter that is representative of the yew tree, another earth element, but it's a wood element. And the yew tree is all about stability and slow growth. So again, back to the original meaning of the Knight of Pentacles, the Knight of Stones, is this stability and perseverance and patience, endurance and strength. So there's a lot of strength in the horse that's moving, but there's also this slow growth that is represented here. So we have this balance, this weaving together of passion and slow growth. And I love that in both the card and these top two letters is this idea of the Knight of Stones being this slow, dedicated, moving, persistent character, and a horse that's kicking up the dirt and running forward. We've got the passion over here on the left with the shin, and the slow growth with the Iwaz on the right. So those two things need to be woven together into this chord for you that will bring you forward into the month. Passion for sure, but also steady, slow, progressive growth that will cause a long, sturdy, strong tree, a strong trunk that will last for a very long time, enduring through all these things and having patience even with the passion that's happening. Because sometimes we have this passion, sometimes we have a passion to move forward really quickly, but we still have to be patient in order to see things come into fruition. On the left side in the center piece is the piece that represents what's a fear or challenge in the situation. We have the letter Dalet, and Dalet is the letter that means doorway. So something is a transition point. Some doorway is going to need to be opened or passed through. The doorway can sometimes be quite frightening because we don't know what's on the other side. But we need to understand that the doorway is necessary to get to the other side. So we've got this fire that's happening, some kind of passion, some kind of forward movement with spirit, and a doorway that may be a little challenging to step through, that it's a liminal space, and we're a little afraid of that liminal space. We're a little bit challenged by it. The Dalet is also sometimes seen as the delta of Venus, the birth canal. So birthing is really hard. It's a beautiful thing, and it's really challenging. So that doorway is coming. And when it does come, we need to pass through it. We can't stay in the womb when it's time to be born. And that's the challenge here, is how do we step through the doorway with courage and maybe with a little humility. The word dal means somebody who's humbled. So we need to maybe duck our head a little bit to get through the doorway, maybe put our head down slightly, have a little humility as we step through the doorway. And that's the fear or challenge here, is how do we step through that doorway after coming from a place of passion and being inspired to move forward. And on the Nordic rune side, we have the letter Manaz in the challenge position. And when Manaz is in the challenge position, it's about a fear or a challenge with caring what other people think. This is our place in humanity. And sometimes it's difficult to not be worried about what other people think especially when we're inspired by something new. And this is the challenge here. How do we drown out the din of humanity as it comes at us, telling us that what we're doing is stupid? And maybe that's even in our own head, that our passions are worthless, or maybe we're just afraid that that's what people think. But even if people are publicly criticizing us, we need to remember that we have a slow, steady growth here, that the passion is coming from the divine, that this is spirit moving us forward. Manaz is seen as a couple of different, you can see the wunyo down here at the bottom, wunyo facing each other. So it's facing each other with joy. But when it's in a position of fear or challenge, maybe we're afraid that people aren't going to face us with joy. We're afraid that they're going to criticize us and put us down. And if that happens, we can bring ourselves back up to the knowledge that this slow, steady growth is given to us by divinity, that we have the ability to move forward with this passion that we have coming. And the outcome on the Hebrew side is the letter He. The letter He is the first letter of the word Hineni, meaning here I am, present and ready for service to the divine. So it's about showing up. It's just about showing up, being present, continuing to show up and listen to the divine, knowing that your passion is divinely inspired, and remaining present with what is, acceptance of what is. And sometimes that can be a little challenging, but I think that's what it's saying, is the outcome is that we will be able to be present, show up for ourselves, to say, here I am, ready for service. And also it's the advice is to continue to show up. He is 2 of the 4 letters of the divine name, the Yud, He, Vav, He. That's like a seed and presence, connection and presence. So we have this idea of showing up, this idea of presence, showing up twice in the divine name. Showing up twice is important, not just showing up once and then disappearing, but remaining, enduring, again with the Knight of Stones and with the Iwas, remaining and being enduring in our presence, continuing to show up for ourselves, continuing to show up for our mission and our calling and our inspiration. After we've stepped through that doorway, maybe we just need to take a moment to sit with it, and say, I am still here. I'm still here on this mission, whatever it may be. And on the Nordic rune side, in our outcome position, we have the letter Wunyo, which means joy. So it's about showing up and finding joy in it. We have the potential here to show up with joy and be rewarded with joy. So it's both, again, the advice and the outcome. Remain joyful, find our own joy in the situation, and we will be rewarded with joy. And I think this is a beautiful reading for the Knight of Stones. What are we weaving together? This idea of passion versus endurance, or not versus, but in conjunction with, that we're weaving together this idea of passionate forward movement, this idea of this horse that is kicking up the dirt, and the dirt itself, the earth itself, being there for us, enduring, staying present, transforming it with our energy, transforming it with fire. And then we move through that doorway, whatever it is, regardless of how challenging it is, we have to get born through this period of time. Transformation happens with fire, and we go through the doorway. And when we do, if we're concerned about people, if we're concerned about others criticizing us, or what people will think, the humanity of the situation, or where we fit into humanity, we need to just remember that if we can show up with joy, that we'll be rewarded with joy. Wunyo is here, and presence, showing up with being present, staying joyful, remembering that this is coming down from Shekhinah, remembering that endurance is necessary, that this doorway is here for us to pass through, not just to stop us. So for those of you who chose the Knight of Stones today in horse, I think it's time to get on that horse, ride that spirit forward, and continue enduring. Not ride it so fast that you can't. You have to pace yourself, is what I'm saying. That we do need to get on it, but we also need to make sure that we take time to rest, take time to just show up and be present, not listen to the din of humanity, and find our joy on the ride. So for those of you who chose horse, this has been your reading. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like and subscribe. I wish you the best for this month of Adar as you find your way of weaving all these pieces together for yourself. And I will see you here next time. Hello, those of you who chose the Six of Arrows, Transitions. This is a wonderful card. It is traditionally, the Six of Arrows is a card of moving away from something that has not been serving you, perhaps towards something that is serving you better. In this particular case, we have the swan boat on the dark river, driven by a hooded figure, and we have our 6 swords on the sails. I think that's beautiful. A lot of times the 6 of swords is seen as all these swords kind of jammed into the bottom of the boat, and you're wondering, how can that float with 6 swords stuffed into it? But the 6 of arrows here, we have those arrows pointing toward the center, pointing toward the center. They're all coming together into this space. And we have this rigging on the ship that is held together with ropes that are woven, and the moon in the sky, and you can see the sun setting or rising behind, I'm not sure which. Swans are known as the bird that floats in the river of Tuonela, which is sometimes the river of death, and since we have a hooded figure, maybe this boat is that boat that takes folks to the underworld. There's a transition that's coming with the Six of Arrows, moving away from something that is no longer serving toward something that will serve you better. So there's some weaving that needs to happen, clearly, in those of you who've chosen the Six of Arrows today. We're going to start by pulling out 3 Hebrunes, and then we're going to do some Nordic runes as well. So the letter that's coming down from above is the letter Dalet. Interesting. Our fear or challenge in the situation is the letter Nun. And our outcome is the letter Shin. And let's bring out our Nordic runes as well. Coming down from above, we have the letter Algis. Our fear or challenge is the letter Sowilo. And our advice or outcome is the letter Ansus. Okay, well, starting at the top on the Hebrew side, we have the letter Dalet. And this is really interesting because, as I was saying, this looks like the swan and the hooded figure riding through the river to the underworld in the Finnish mythology. And Dalet can sometimes represent death. It's a doorway, it's a transition, it's exactly this. So what we're weaving together is this transition with some other elements here, and we're going to get into those in a minute. But Dalet is this doorway. It's walking through a liminal space, going exactly through a transition. What's coming down from the divine is we have a transition to go through here. And the Dalet is sometimes seen as a birth canal as well as a death portal, which is one and the same. Like if you're an infant inside of a womb, you don't know any other world. You have to get born in order to come out into the world. So it may seem like a death. So doorways are coming up here. We've got this doorway that's ready to be passed through. This is what's coming up, the transition here. Something is coming to an end and a new beginning is coming in. And Dalet is also the first letter of the word Dal, which means humble or humility. Somebody who is a poor person. So there's some humility that's necessary here to get through this doorway, to get born out from the other side. Dalet is also the number 4 in Gematria, and to that end it speaks to the 4 directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 elements, the 4 letters of the name of the divine, all things 4 here. So even though we've got a 6 of arrows here, the directions are implied here, that we have some choices about what direction to go. We have to use our elements. We have the element of water with the element of air that is blowing the ship, and then the element of land or solid features like the ship itself, and fire in the form of the sun on the horizon, the moon in the sky. So we've got this number 4 here with the 4 elements propelling us forward through this doorway, whatever it may be. The 4 directions, what direction are we headed after all? So transitions are up, transitions through the doorways, that liminal space, walking through a doorway, tapping into the name of the divine, tapping into the mezuzah as you step through the doorway, that symbol, that amulet that helps us to remember that divinity is here as we pass through transitions, whatever they may be. On the Nordic rune side, we have the letter Algis. And algaes is the letter that means elk. It looks like an antler. You can see it also, sometimes the elk sedge is implicated here. And it's about protection. We are being protected. We are shielded and defended against anything that will bring us harm. It's a connection with divinity, a protection from divinity. And I think this is a really excellent reminder of how to blend these things together, is that we have this doorway, this transition that's coming, and remember that we are protected, that this hooded figure is our protector. This is the one who is guiding our ship. So as we come through whatever transition it is that we are navigating right now, remembering that the divine is here protecting us, that this elk is watching over us with those antlers, protecting us from any harm, that we have this connection with the divine, that there is this higher life that is watching out for us as we go along our path, whether that path is on land or water or in the sky. Our challenge in the situation on the Hebrew side is the letter Nun. And this is interesting, that the Nun is the letter that represents humility. Naaman means humble or humility. It's sometimes seen as somebody who is kneeling and has their head bowed. So coming down to a place of humility. This is the challenge here. This is the fear here. Maybe the fear is that we'll be humiliated. Maybe the fear is that we will be humbled. And the challenge is to remain humble as we walk through, as we go through this transition, whatever it may be. We need to remain humble. Nun is also the first letter of the word Nes, which means miracle. And maybe that's the challenge, that we don't see the miracle yet. Maybe we need to be more humble in order to see the miracle. Maybe we need to spend some time in penitent prayer or isolation. Not isolation exactly, but maybe a chosen time apart to find our humility. I see Nun as corresponding to the Hermit card. So maybe it's time for us to take a little bit of a time apart. Maybe that's what this transition is about, is taking time away from wherever we've been. And it's a challenge for sure to spend time contemplating all this stuff, to remain humble as we go through these transitions. Sometimes it's very challenging. But we need to remember that the miracle does exist, even if we can't see it yet, that the transition will bring us through to the other side, whatever it might be, and we accept that in humility, however it's presented to us. Sometimes we have to get on that boat and we don't know where we're going. Sometimes we have to trust the person who has got the helm there, whether that's a person or the divine, or a person sent by the divine. Over on the Nordic rune side, we have Sowilo in the position of the fear or challenge. Sowilo represents the sun or source energy. So on some level, it's the divine itself. So the sun, or our source energy, that which keeps us alive or gives us life. It's about guidance and wholeness and awareness. I think about it as the source, the one who gives us life. And our challenge here in this situation is remembering that the source is here with us, that they're the ones who provided the doorway. They're the ones who are providing the protection here. The fear or challenge in the Sowilo is, because it is the sun, it's about being burned out. Are we going to be burned out by this transition? Is the travel going to be too much for us? And we can rely back on source for that. If we're afraid or challenged by this transition, that we need to remember the source is here for us, that the sun is not just setting behind us, but possibly also rising on the other side. So we can't tell whether that's a sunrise or a sunset in this card here. But we can trust that the divine is here, and trust that we can rely on the protection of divinity, as is promised by the algaes above. That this transition is provided for us by the divine, and that with our humility we can get through. And if we find ourselves being burned out, remember that we're protected, and remember to remain humble as we go through the transition, because everything is temporary. Our outcome or advice on the situation on the left side is the letter Shin. And Shin is also about that source energy, sun, moon, stars, Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of the divine. So our outcome here is fire. This is the mother letter of fire, and you can see it looks a little bit like fire with 3 flames licking up from the bottom. Those flames which are inspiration. And so when we come through this doorway, when we come through with humility, we will find fire, we will find presence, we will find wholeness. Shalom begins with shin, and that's not just the absence of war, but the wholeness of all. So bringing back together those weavings of wholeness, bringing back together the things into one whole. And I love that it's 3 flames licking up here, because that's the number that we need to braid. And we could twist with 2, but we can braid with 3. So the outcome here on this side is wholeness. It's fire and inspiration that maybe we've been a little challenged going through a doorway, having to remain humble, but in the end we have inspiration and fire and indwelling presence of the divine. And similarly, on the right side, on the Nordic rune side, we have the letter Ansus. And Ansus is said to be the voice of the divine. It's about mind and voice and thought and spirit. It's being able to tap into true vision and knowledge. It's representative of the god Odin in Nordic mythology. So we've got the Shekhinah on the left and Odin on the right. Those are very powerful beings in both heritages. So our outcome here is connection with divinity. Outcome here is inspiration and the ability to speak and think towards something creative. Having inspiration is affiliated with Ansus the same way as inspiration is affiliated with the Shin. So I'm seeing really positive outcome here. This transition, it may be challenging. It may be a little frightening, because it is leaving something that is known, even if it's uncomfortable. But knowing that we're protected by divinity, knowing that the transition must happen because it's coming down from the divine, this transition that we need to move on to something new, that even though it seems like it might be a death, we need to be birthed through the delta of Venus here with the Dalit. Humility is challenging. Remaining humble, knowing that the miracle is happening, is also really, really challenging. Maybe tapping into our source energy while it's happening might be even challenging, that we might feel burned out by the trip itself. But in the outcome, we have wholeness, peace, Shekhinah, fire, inspiration, and the ability to communicate, to be able to hear the voices of the divine, the ability to be inspired and transition forward into a place of wholeness and connection with divinity as well. So for those of you who chose the 6 of Arrows, this has been your reading. I love that we're weaving together all these elements of the unknown, the transition, the protection, the divine, the 3 flames of the Shin weaving together into one braid, bringing those pieces back together and finding our center and the arrows as we move forward. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will look forward to seeing you here next time.